Thanks for tuning in and welcome to the Post Route Show. And now, here's your host, W. Earl Kitchings.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Post Route. I'm your host, W. Earl Kitchings, and as always, here at the Post Route, we want to dive deep into conversations with Black quarterbacks, both past and present. This show is proudly brought to you by Quarter Phi Back, the preeminent fraternity of Black quarterbacks and the home of the prestigious BIP Memorial Trophy, the only national award that honors both the top HBCU quarterback and the top Black quarterback from high schools across America. We're always excited and thrilled to have you join us. So if you enjoy and like what you are seeing and hearing, hey, tell somebody else about what we're doing and what our mission is preserving the legacies of Black quarterbacks. Support us by subscribing to our channel here on YouTube. Hit the like button. Tap the notification bell so you never miss out on one of our episodes. Join us live every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for more phenomenal conversations. This is going to be a very power-packed night because, hey, not only do I have a great guest coming on tonight, but tonight, here on the Post Route, we will release the 2025 HBCU National Watch List of quarterbacks for 2025. We're going to give you the top 10 and the honorable mention. And then next week, we will bring you the top high school guys because football is here. But before we do that, we started this posthumous honoring of Black quarterbacks here on the Post Route and at Quarter Phi Back. So in August, I would like to pay tribute to a former outstanding quarterback who played at Bethune-Cookman University from 1989 to 1992. I had a chance to work with him for 1 year only when I started working at Bethune-Cookman as a sports information director. He was already entrenched as becoming one of the top quarterbacks in the program. Well, Jermaine J.D. Hall, they called him J.D., ended up becoming the number 2 guy on the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats all-time passing list with over 7,000 yards. Hailing from Jacksonville, Florida, he was right behind another outstanding quarterback from Jacksonville, Bernard Hawk. But J.D. Hall was a phenomenal quarterback, a fine young man, went on to have success at the coaching ranks, finally came back to his hometown of Jacksonville, Florida, and started coaching at Mandarin High School before his untimely passing back in 2007. But J.D. Hall was a great one. I'll always remember that young man. As you can see, that smile, man, that was legit. That was just the kind of guy he was. So kudos to him as he joins us as being another posthumous member of Quarter Phi Back, the preeminent fraternity for Black quarterbacks. Now, let me tell you about what we got going on for 2025. That is a collage of the quarterbacks at the HBCUs who make up this starting list of the top 10 guys for 2025. The top 10 guys. And I'm going to go through them one by one so that you'll know exactly who they are. So we're going to start with number 10 on our list. And that is a young man by the name of, his name is David Buggs out of Florida Memorial University down in Miami, Florida. Had a great season last year, passing for over 2,000 yards. And that young man did a great job. I'm sorry. Before I get to him, Tygerian Williams was at number 10 in Mississippi Valley, 1,703 yards, 11 touchdowns, hailing from Aliceville, Alabama. At number 9 was David Buggs, a junior out of Kissimmee, Florida, 1,706 yards, 15 touchdowns. At number 8, from Shelby, North Carolina, Winston-Salem University is where he's playing. Dalen Lee, a junior this year, 1,728 yards, 14 touchdowns. And then we have at number 7, Jameer Dismukes out of Cleveland, Ohio, playing for Allen University last year, threw for 19 touchdowns, 1,842 yards. Coming in at number 6, out of Lakeland, Florida, playing for the Bethune-Cookman University Wildcats, 1,843 yards, 11 touchdowns, Cam Ransom. Cam will be a senior coming up this year. So those are the 6 through 10. And now we'll give you our top 5 guys for this upcoming year. At number 5, Cameron Ivory, Miles College, 1,860 yards, 17 touchdowns out of Birmingham, Alabama. At number 4 for Jackson State, threw for 2,236 yards, 21 touchdowns. Canton, Mississippi is his hometown. Jacobian Morgan, a senior at Jackson State. The young man we had on the show earlier this year from out there in Oklahoma. You don't know about him because he's out there in a place where they don't bring you much black college football from out in that area, but we know about him because he is a member of our fraternity. Torrance Bardell, the senior from New Orleans, Louisiana, 2,310 yards last year, 21 touchdowns. At number 2, from Tampa, Florida, Isaiah Knowles, a junior, 2,555 yards, 32 touchdowns. And at number 1, also from Tampa, Florida, the winner of our 2024 BIP Memorial Trophy, the guy that surprised a lot of people in the SIAC since he's been there the last 3 years, David Wright. He'll be a senior this year. Last year, he threw for 3,271 yards, 31 touchdowns. His biggest game last year was he went to Daytona Beach, Florida, and upset Bethune-Cookman. Those are our top 5 guys in our 2025 quarter-5 back preseason HBCU national watch list. So we will keep an eye on these guys as we continue to roll through the season. But now, let me just tell you about my guest for tonight. Man, you know, when you're talking about some of these young men and what they've done and where they've been, you got to bring up how they got there and what they did once they got to the college level. This young man played high school football at Kent Island High in Stevensville, Maryland. Now, I'm not going to tell you about where that is. I'm going to let him tell you, but he led the Class 2A in his senior year in passing with 2,174 yards. Went on to play 3 seasons at West Virginia University and then 2 seasons at Wheeling University. And I was like, Wheeling, where's? Well, he didn't leave the state of West Virginia for too much because he just went from one spot to another spot. But an outstanding quarterback, very, very competent in knowing the game of football, graduated from with his degree in journalism and general business. So he's a smart guy. Please join me in welcoming my guest for tonight's show, Trent Jackson, Wheeling University by way of Stevensville, Maryland. Trent, welcome to the Post Route, my man.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having me. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now tell everybody exactly where Stevensville is. You know, Maryland is like, you know, it's got all these little small hamlets, like New Jersey, got all these little small places all over the state. Where exactly is Stevensville? I know you're going to tell me it's close to Baltimore or something.
Yeah, it's probably about 45 minutes from Baltimore.
Okay.
If you're familiar with Annapolis, Maryland, it is right across the Bay Bridge. I live on Kent Island, right across the Bay Bridge. You know, so it's probably a good 15-minute drive from Annapolis. Not too far away, but yeah, that's where I grew up.
Okay. Kind of cold up in that part of the country too.
Maryland has all 4 seasons, and you might get all 4 in one day. So we definitely get our fair share of cold. That is for sure. This past winter was rough, man. But I'll say the summer has been rough too. It's been pretty hot.
Well, knowing about that Bay Bridge and Annapolis and crossing that bridge, man, anytime after November, between November and February, I know that wind coming off the Chesapeake Bay is no joke, man. I know what that's like. Live through some of that. So playing at your high school, when did you discover that you really had a fire burn for wanting to be a quarterback, man? Because that's not one job that everybody aspires to do.
Yeah, I would say, that burn probably came before I got to high school. I played quarterback ever since I was 7. My dad, the first football team that I was on, my dad put me a quarterback, and and it was something that I stuck with ever since. I would say when I got to my junior year, I fractured my ankle, and I was out for a good significant portion of the year. And I was kind of put to a point where, my senior year it was going to be up to me, and how I performed, So that going through that senior season, going through that adversity, my junior year, I wound up transferring back home to Ken Island for my senior year, and I would say it brought a lot of joy back to the game. I think going through the injury and going through some other issues throughout that time in high school, and just getting back to the joy. It brought a ton of motivation back to me. It brought a ton of passion back to the game, and really I would say that year alone really carried my motivation all the way through, my college days and now into coaching.
Well, going through that last year of senior high school, what was your anticipation of going high to a high-profile college or somewhere mid-level, or maybe if nobody's really calling on Trent Jackson to be their quarterback, man? I know sometimes that happens. You get a little disappointed. What were your thoughts at that time?
It's funny you bring that up. Like I said, my junior year, I had gotten hurt. And before that season and after that season as well, I had some pretty, high prominent schools, some FBS schools, really taking a serious look at me. And at that injury, it hurt the chances. And then on top of that, transferred from a school that had a bunch of connections. Into a 2A, public school that, it doesn't send out a ton of Division I products on their football program, from a yearly basis. So I would say for me, when I got to that point, it allowed me to mature. It allowed me, I had finally gotten to a point where, I was confident in myself that even making that transition, understanding the circumstances, trust your abilities, trust what you've been taught, trust your knowledge of the game, and trust, your overall, ability to play football. And what was great for me is I released the stress of the college part and aspect from it, and I would say that'd be the big thing that would be holding me back is, oh man, am I going to be able to go to this Division I program or that? When I got to Ken Island, I finally kind of just let it go. It was more so, hey, focus on what you can control. Focus on your senior year. Enjoy it, number one, and just leave it all out on the field. It'll work its way out. And it did, which is awesome.
Well, I would think that you and your dad had some awesome conversations about that time in your life, because you're not certain. The injury creates some doubt sometimes, but you need someone to support and tell you, hey, it's going to be okay. Stay focused, stay on track, and it's going to work out. And I'm just curious, how did those conversations go for you and your dad? Because I know he was probably your number one cheerleader going through that adversity.
Oh yeah, absolutely. My dad, the inspiration that he's been for me, throughout my childhood has been something very admirable. That those couple years, those high school years, like really had to lean on some family, because it was definitely some tough times, and transferring and battling injury, but having that support system, and he took me all across the country to camps. He really did everything that he could to provide me the opportunity to, make sure that I got to the next level. before, when I did get there, there wasn't a day that I didn't talk to him, and even to this day, he still comes to every game that I coach, and I still call him before every game. So that's the relationship that we have. It's a great bond. And like I said, he serves me a ton of inspiration and motivation.
So, from Maryland to West Virginia, and not only just West Virginia, but the West Virginia University. What was that transition like for you, Trent? I mean, I'm sure that was like, wow. So this is going to be some good times for me going to the next level.
Oh yeah, it is. It is not high school. I will say that. The program, the structure. I was blessed to have two head coaches while I was at West Virginia and really be able to learn the game, and especially from the offense perspective. But I would say West Virginia, and I would always consider myself a pretty disciplined person, but I would say West Virginia taught me a ton about structure, discipline, accountability. We would get in trouble if we had our socks, the wrong color socks on. If we yawned in the weight room, it was a problem. So, it was always, being on top of, and I think that's definitely something is carried over to coaching and how I coach my guys now. It's hey, if you want a successful season, if you want success individually and from a team perspective, destiny is always going to favor the prepared, and the more prepared that you are, the better opportunity that you're going to give yourself. So that would be, definitely what West Virginia taught me, and it was definitely it was a change going from Maryland and going obviously from the high school ranks to immediately going into an FBS program, at the time Power 5 program. So it's, and I'm sure it's no different because Coach Mike is still there. So, I know those kids that they're getting it right now, but, I'm sure they're going to have a pretty successful season this year.
Did going to a West Virginia help boost your confidence and your abilities and skills? Because, after the injury, and you like really thinking about whether or not this is going to work out, man, but you end up going to a FBS power in the country. Did that help with your confidence and give you more confidence in knowing that you had the abilities and the skills to play at that level?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I would say really when I got in there, I was given some opportunities as a true freshman in practice, kind of move up the depth chart, going up and down the depth chart, and being able to realize to myself, hey, you can compete, and I think obviously the confidence is interesting. It's an interesting deal, because your opportunities are so limited, so if you don't take advantage of it that day, you don't know if you'll get more reps the next. So being able, I would say, probably helped my confidence out more now for me now than what it did then. It taught me, hey, not everything's always going to be perfect. You can't stress yourself out about being perfect. You got to take it one rep at a time, and you also got to prepare, as if you may not get any more reps again. So, I would say that's what it taught me.
So when you got to West Virginia, and of course, going from high school to a big time college, man, everything is bigger now. Bigger weight room, bigger stadium, bigger cafeteria. Everything gets bigger. Talk a little bit how managing that part of going from high school, because I've seen a lot of guys leave high school, top athletes, but that transition to that bigger doesn't always work out for them, is not comfortable for them, or they just don't transition well. How do you make that transition, and talk to guys about making that transition? Because I want to go to a big school, but if you've never been away from home a lot, man, that could be a very scary deal. Talk a little bit about making that transition and how to overcome some of that anxiety.
Yeah, it's a huge transition. And when I got to West Virginia, it was a shock, it was truly a shock, and especially from a football standpoint. You're not used to, we all think in high school we work hard. We go to school lifts. You might do a lift on your own after. You might do a little bit of throwing. That was the first time in my life where I'm up at 5:30 in the morning and I don't get home till 10 o'clock. Dealing with it, I would say organization. That West Virginia, because you had to be, and the great thing is there were a lot of resources there that were there to help, which is awesome. But you had to organize yourself. You had to get your stuff together the night before. I know when it came to class, I would sit down and every semester and make sure I put all my assignments into a scheduling calendar. So I'm getting notifications that this is due, because the schedule of what we were doing was so jam packed. You got to stay on top of it or you'll fall behind. So I would say for any guy that's going into the college world, be as prepared as possible. And when you get there, really take advantage of all the resources that you have and try to be as organized as you most possibly can.
Well, going to West Virginia versus going to maybe, and because I'm familiar with a West Virginia State or a Bluefield, it's just the dynamics are just different. I mean, smaller school, smaller classroom, a little bit more personal with your professors. A bigger school is not as personal. You go to an auditorium or a lecture hall, you're sitting in there with 200-300 other people and they're lecturing. And if you're not on top of your game, you're sitting there like a deer in the headlights, like, oh my God, I can't absorb all of this. So I think any guy who can make that transition work and make it work for 4 years, that's a testimony to them and their ability to grow and mature. Because like you said, you don't know what to expect, but hey, this what, like they said, well, that's what you wanted, right? You wanted to go to that big name school. Yeah, but I didn't know about that part. I'm okay with the football part. Yeah, but that academic part, because without that academics, you're not going to be there much longer.
That's right. It's the academics are huge. In order to play, you got to be able to be eligible. And like I said, I really think organization and having the discipline to make sure that you're getting what you need done. And if you do need help, finding different ways to get help. And every school has different resources. Some schools have more, some have less. When I was at Wheeling, obviously the resources were not as high as what they were at West Virginia. But it's really about what are you willing to invest to make sure that you're learning it. Are you taking advantage of the office hours with the professors, like you said, trying to get personal with them and interpersonal with them and really learn and try to find out what the issues are within the class. And at least in my experience within two colleges, professors that see a student caring and really wanting to be there and really willing to get a good grade, I have yet to see one of them not be willing to help and not be willing to figure out, how to get you through, and make sure that you're learning at the same time. So, definitely just take advantage and find the most disciplined ways to make sure that you're being successful in the classroom as well.
Trent, we see guys playing at the level you were at West Virginia, and we see everything from a distance or from the exterior. But that quarterback room, man, when you're at a West Virginia, that quarterback room, man, is 4 or 5 guys. What was that like for you to now be in that kind of a group thing where it's like 4 or 5 of you guys, maybe 6, and everybody's got notebooks and everybody's learning, and the quarterback coach is going through stuff, man, and they're expecting you to pick it up. They're not expecting you not know what this stuff is, because hey, tomorrow you could be the guy that's going to get more reps than some other guy. So what was that like at West Virginia, or just so we'll understand what it's like for the big colleges, because a lot of times we don't hear about those type of things, those behind the scene things. What was that quarterback room like at West Virginia for you?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. One, you get brothers from that room, because you're going through everything together, whether you want to with them or not. You're going to go through it with them, So you get brothers, and I talk to those guys all the time. But what I would say is when I left high school and I got to West Virginia, I thought I knew some football. Thought I knew about some defenses. Absolutely not. So the amount of knowledge and we met all the time, constantly. Yeah. There's constant meetings, and I have a bag. In my room, and it's just filled with notebooks. Wow. Just constant notes over the last, 7 years. I guess at this point, 3 years coaching. It's going on to my third year coaching, and obviously West Virginia and Wheeling. So the amount of knowledge that I've learned, and I'm still learning, which is awesome. So the development aspect from a mental standpoint for me, I would say that'd be one of the biggest things that I took from both schools, from Wheeling and West Virginia.
Well, before we take a quick time out, I gotta ask you, man. I fell in love with West Virginia University way back in the late 80s, early 90s, man. And the reason I fell in love with West Virginia football was because of one guy. And he wore number 9, and he was just known as the Major. Even though that was his name, Major Harris, he was just known as the Major. What is it like about the tradition of Mountaineer football up there? From a perspective of you being a black quarterback, what is it like up there for guys like yourself, and knowing that there was a guy like a Major Harris and a Pat White? What is that like for you guys?
Oh yeah, I would say those guys, Pat White, Major Harris, Rasheed Marshall, Geno Smith, those guys, they serve as a huge inspiration. Okay. Not only it's getting definitely a little bit more prominent now, but seeing us, at a Power 5 level, or seeing us in the NFL, you don't see it all the time. And so to see those guys be successful at that level, it served a big motivation for us. And to see how the state, really recognizes them and really appreciates them and always is welcoming them back. I would say, since I've been when I was at West Virginia and then even all the way up to now, those are the guys also that get more so maybe the most recognition. They're always bringing Pat White back when they can. They always like I told you before, Major Harris is always up on the board, every game. Yeah, every game that I was at too. Geno was always on the board every game that I was at too. So, I would say they definitely do an awesome job of recognizing those quarterbacks, that came before me, and it's awesome to see that their legacies, being pushed on throughout the years.
Well, we touched a little bit on legacy, man. Those were the guys before you, but your time at West Virginia adds you to that mix of a legacy. What would you say about legacy as far as a guy like yourself and being a part of that legacy of those guys? How valuable or important is that to you?
Oh yeah, I would say legacy is always important, and it's about, how you, for me, it's not necessarily even about accolades. I think it's more so about how you're impacting those around you. Will those around you speak positive and say that you were a benefit, rather than a negative to their surroundings. And being able to leave your mark, and leaving, I'm always a believer in, leaving somewhere better than what you found it, and I think definitely those guys, obviously, they did an awesome job of leaving West Virginia better than how they found it. And the quarterbacks that come, there's a couple, African-American quarterbacks that are there now, I wish them the best, I think they got a ton of talent. One of them's from Maryland, he's got a ton of talent. So hopefully, they get their opportunity, and continue to push that legacy into the future.
Okay. Well, stay with me, man. I'm going to take a quick time out, and we're going to come back and we're going to talk about that second part of your career. And then we're going to talk about what's really important to you now, your coaching and your training of quarterbacks going forward. Stay with me. Yes, our guest tonight here on the Post Route is an outstanding young man. And, I only get an opportunity to talk to a lot of these young men for a very short amount of time. But when you talk to enough of them, you get to know one of the things that John Wooden talked about, and I believe in this so much. Be more caring more concerned about your character than your reputation. And tonight, I've got a fine character guy in Trent Jackson because, man, he is a awesome guy. So we're going to get back to him and do a little bit more talking about part two of his college career before we start talking about his post-college career and what he's doing now. But right now, don't forget, if you get a chance, put your order in, email us and tell us what you want. We've got the merchandise here. We've got our caps going. We got our bucket hats. We got our lapel pins, our hoodies, warm-ups. We've got two different versions of our logo t-shirt. One is a polyester sublimation. One is a cotton. And then we got our golf shirts. So what we're wanting to do is to make sure that we are offering our merchandise to you. And we are constantly looking at new ways of improving our merchandise. And we are still working to get that store fine-tuned so we can make it a little bit easier for you to order your merchandise. Our shirts start at $25 for the cotton shirt, $45 for the sublimation, $55 for the golf shirt, $70 for the hoodies, $90 for the warm-ups, and $30 for the caps. But you can just email us if you see something you like. Just hit us up. Let us know what you like, and we'll get right out to you. And then always, if you have not gotten your copy of my book, The Forgotten QBs, make sure you order your book. Again, everything we're doing right now is virtually through our in-house operations. So just shoot us an email and let us know what you're interested in. The book is $35. We'll send it out to you right away. Make sure you get a copy. Your library is incomplete if you don't have my book on your shelf talking about the Forgotten QBs, so you can learn more about guys who played between 1903 and 1990 and guys from 91 all the way to the day, even guys like our guest tonight, Trent Jackson. So please help us out and get your merchandise and or your book. We're going to get back to my guest tonight, Mr. Trent Jackson, former quarterback at West Virginia. Trent, welcome back to the show. So your time at West Virginia was 3 years, and then you decided not to leave the state. You just went down the road a little bit, man, and stayed right there at Wheeling University. What was that transition like for you, and why stay in West Virginia? Why not just go back to Maryland?
Yeah, there were definitely opportunities, back in Maryland, a couple different schools, and there were some opportunities, down a little bit south as well.
Okay.
But Wheeling, a couple of reasons why I went to Wheeling. One, obviously I was at the point, I graduated early from West Virginia, and I really wanted to get the opportunity to play, and I wanted to play, and I waited 3 years, and I was like, man, I got to get it done before this eligibility runs out. So that was definitely the biggest benefactor. But the second thing was, going through the recruiting process, the offensive coordinator at Wheeling, Nemo Washington, he really took the time to get to know me, really took the time to, get a good idea of who I truly am as a person and obviously as a quarterback, so I think that relationship, it paid huge dividends to me making that commitment.
So getting to Wheeling, you pretty much stepped right into being a starting quarterback and finished out your collegiate career on a positive note.
Oh, yeah. I think, obviously I battled some adversity throughout that time, coming in, and I did start that year coming into it, and was voted captain by my peers.
That's great.
It was awesome. It was awesome. I had some ups and downs throughout that time. But finished, my second year as captain as well. So it was definitely a learning time for me for sure. I think I learned, as from a football standpoint, really more at Wheeling than I did at West Virginia.
Oh, okay. Now, what is Wheeling, a Division II or NAIA school?
Ready to go for, so yeah. Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I got you back now. Yeah, I would say Wheeling, they definitely, took a lot of credit in to develop me from a quarterback mentally as well.
Okay. So now, is that an NAIA or Division II school, Wheeling?
Division two. They're in the
Okay.
Mountain East Conference, same conference as West Virginia State. Yep.
Oh, okay. I'm familiar with a little bit with that. And does it seem like, I mean, being in West Virginia, if you're not in West Virginia, man, nobody really knows anything about what's going on up there with you guys, man, because it's like, okay, other than West Virginia, I never heard of these schools, but obviously it proved out to be something good for you because the teaching process continued. And if learning more at a smaller school made you a better quarterback, better coach, I mean, kudos to them for, man, just pouring all that into you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think their investment levels from a program, and when I got to Wheeling, they were only in their fifth year of actually having a team.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was still a fairly young program, but it was a young staff, energetic staff, and truly cared about the game and truly cared about you as a person. So, I think just growing those relationships with those coaches there, it definitely allowed me to invest even more. I think I've always been invested, but really dive into the nuances of football and really learn the true details behind, hey, why are these fronts being ran and why are these coverages being disguised the way they are? That was all grown from Wheeling and the investment that they put into us.
Did you kind of already see that coaching was going to be something you wanted to do, being that so much of this information and knowledge was being given to you? Were you already kind of seeing that, hey, man, when I leave Wheeling, I know what I'm going to do?
To a degree, I definitely knew I wanted to do something to stay engaged with the game. And it's funny, my offense coordinator when I was at with, he's like, you're going to be a great coach one day, and I'm like, I don't know, man. We'll see. So and when I got out of it, I had some opportunities to go to a college and coach, and I had some opportunities at some high schools as well, and I decided to go the high school route for the moment, and I fell in love with it. It really, I didn't know I was going to grow the passion to coach as much as I have. It's something that is an everyday deal for me, and I wake up excited for it every day. So it's been awesome. These past 3 years they've been incredible from a learning and development standpoint, not only of my players but of me as well. It's definitely my passion for sure.
So what was it like, man, that first day, man, you go to practice, man, you got your whistle on, and those guys come up to you and say, Coach, what do we got to do? What is it? I've experienced that, man, and I don't think there's any better honor than for guys to call you coach with that respect that they have, man, because they will do whatever for you. What was that like when that first practice, man, and that first day with that whistle and they said, Coach?
Oh yeah, it was awesome. It was different. I was fresh out of playing. So it was definitely it was a weird feeling, and it probably took me a practice or two to get comfortable and like, okay, I see. I see why my coaches were stressed out over the years. I do see that. And two, but two, once I got comfortable with the kids, I'm like, man, this is awesome. And over the course of seeing them get better over the course of a season or the course of an off season, that just makes you enjoy the process that much more.
Well, being a young coach, man, I mean, guys want to gravitate to you right away, man. A young coach, man, they kind of see that relationship. He's not that much older than me, so I can kind of relate. How quick or how easy was it to just build some good relationship with those young men as you started your coaching career?
I would say it was pretty good. It would, obviously you have to build the relationship with the player, to get them to trust you. Yeah. And I would say, just investing in them. They asked to go to the field and get some extra work. If I don't have anything to do, I'll be out there, and because I want to see you get better, but on the flip side, and in turn of that, that's how they begin to trust you and open up to you, and then in turn to that, that allows me to coach them and understand truly how to coach every individual player a little bit differently, because they're not robots. They do have feelings. They are all different. So, showing them that you're truly passionate and that you truly care about them, that allows you to get the most maximum effort that you can, from a whole team's aspect.
So now you're the OC, man, and you're calling the plays, man. What has that been like?
Yeah, it's been awesome, man. I love calling plays. Last year was my first time getting to do it at the varsity level. And we had a really successful season. It was the first time, we had made our conference. We had just moved up into the conference, and we had been in that conference probably about a decade before. So that was the first time we had made it to that conference playoffs, in the span of a decade. Beat our rival for the first time in several years. So it was awesome, being able to, put together playbooks throughout the years and kind of merge it into one and taking a little bit here from, something you see on TV and, okay, how can I make it, fit into our scheme, and what the kids can truly handle and, learning how to put out installs and making sure that the kids understand it. It can be a little time consuming, but I love that part of it, because you're building a great product, so it's been great. I'm super excited for this season. Our investment levels at Severn has been off the charts. The kids are really, they're ready for the season. They're excited. We're in the middle of fall camp now, and we just finished our first install today. So they're rolling. I've been really loving what I've seen so far, and I'm pumped up for a couple of weeks from now when we got that first game.
What's the mascot name for our Severn?
The Admirals. We are the Severn Admirals.
The Admirals. I got you. The Admirals. Okay. Yeah. I got you. Okay. At first I thought I said the animals. I was going to say the animals, but the Admirals. Okay, I got you. Yeah. I got you. So, were you guys more of a running team, or are you more of a passing team, or you just balanced?
Yeah, last year we really tried to be as balanced as possible. If you were looking at statistically, it's really like split down the middle. I think it's 51-49 was the final percentage. With a little bit, it was 51 to the pass and 49 with run. I think the biggest thing from a coordinator aspect is finding out, obviously what is it that your team's good at, number one. Yeah. And then number two, what tendencies can you take from the defense? What tendencies can you expose from the defense? And every defense is different. Some teams have a weaker defensive line, some have stronger. Some don't have as strong as the secondary. Some got some dogs out there, So being able to find those tendencies and obviously their coverages, and then finding the coverage beaters behind it. It kept us at a balanced level. The great thing at Severn is we have 3 awesome running backs. But then I also got a quarterback that can throw it, all around, and he can make any throw. And I got some really talented receivers. And coming up this year, we got an older, experienced offensive line. So being able to put it together, it's allowed us to stay balanced, which is awesome. And that's the thing I love about it is, not being too predictable, and making teams truly have the game plan for us.
Well, it sounds like the offense is a fine unit that's going to be doing some things. Will your defense match to keep you in the games?
Oh yeah, we got some feisty guys on the defense. Our defense line, we got some guys that are pretty. They'll get after it, and we got some DBs that are truly, they'll make some plays. And then our linebackers, they're ready to eat. They're ready. They're ready for week 1. So it's going to be exciting. We got a really feisty defense. An opportunist defense, and so it's going to be fun. Seeing us battle at practice it's been pretty good to see so far. A lot of competition. Today was a big competition day, and we did team 4th down and team red zone. And I'm looking at the percentage. I'm like, man, we're really competing, which is awesome. A lot of back and forth.
So when do you have your first game of the year?
Yeah, that last weekend of August. I think it's August 30th.
30th, yeah.
Through 30. Yeah, we'll be playing St. Mary's Riken. They're a really good football team. Got a nice dominant defensive line, which is, is going to be a good challenge for us, a good test for us. They're top 20 team in the state. And they're sending out some guys that have been pretty productive over the last few years. So it is exciting. It's going to be it's going to be a super strong test for us. It's going to really show us who we are and where we are as a program. So I'm pumped up for that game, and it's going, like I said, it's going to give us the platform to really show, the work that we've been putting in.
Are you guys playing like high school games on Saturdays or Friday nights? Because I know I had a cousin that lived in Silver Springs, and most of the time when they played a high school game, it was a Saturday, like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, they played their games. I mean, the weather's perfect then on a Saturday because it's not that hot in the fall, but I was kind of like, man, that's kind of different because in Florida, everything was at night.
Right. In Maryland, I would say definitely it depends on the school. The first school I coached at, every game Friday night, you get that Friday night lights field. Severn, a little bit different. I think this year we have 3 or 4 Saturday games. And then on top of that, we don't have lights at the school. So our home games that are on Fridays are like 4 o'clock, which was just weird to me. It took me a second to get adjusted to it. So it's different. It's definitely different. The scheduling aspects is interesting. But it's also it's a good experience, being able to play at all those different times.
Well, I can imagine, man, 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday. Oh my goodness.
Right.
We just getting out of the pep rally, coach. It's time to play.
Right. Yep.
All right. So, Trent, tell us a little bit about this foundation you got, man, and this training combination you got going on. Tell us about Air It Out football quarterback training, man.
Yep. When I finished up playing, before I even started coaching, I knew I wanted to do something to give back, and so started up my own training business, Air It Out quarterback training, and it's grown significantly well over the past 3 years, and we've been blessed to have a lot of top talent within the state, train with us, which has been awesome. And then, we were lucky enough and blessed enough to branch off into the 7-on-7 world, which is this past year was our second season. We were able to have 2 teams. I think we got up to about 38 kids in total within the program. So being able to give back to them, trying to prepare them as best they can. They all 38 tell us they want to play in college, so, I have a really great staff, and we try our best to mimic, even though it's 7-on-7, from a practice structure, from a meeting structure, even to when we travel to tournaments and doing walkthroughs and stuff like that before the tournaments, we try to mimic as best we can that college, structure and atmosphere. That way they do get it's not going to be the whole thing, but you get a taste of, hey, this is what it's like. Is this what you really want? So being able to get back in that aspect, it's been a good sight to see as well.
Are you finding that these young men are really embracing when you say, is this what you really want being at this level? Are you finding them to really embrace that and really want to do that?
Absolutely. I would say that first year, we had our challenge, really successful first year. And then the second year, we got some new talent and really dominant team with a ton of talent. Started off really hot. We went down to Myrtle Beach our first tournament, and one of the better teams in Maryland was actually down at level 82, ran by Torrey Smith. His organization, he does a great job. We were able to compete with them, played them twice, and we were able to compete with them. And I think they gave us a ton of confidence going throughout the course of the season. And we finished it up. Our last tournament was the first time we've ever made it to a championship, which is awesome. The kids stay committed to it throughout the whole season. So definitely I have been able to see those things, benefit the program and benefit them.
Well, kudos to you for having that vision and wanting to continue to work with young people, man, to prepare them, because we were talking earlier about preparing these young men for things like they're doing. And of course, when we talk about the life things that you're preparing them to do, talk to our listeners and viewers a little bit about what some of your philosophies are as it relates to growing these young men up.
Yeah, I would say from a philosophy standpoint, number one is accountability and discipline. How you do anything is how you're going to do everything. And I tell my guys, kind of my motto is, there's a standard, but we're not there just to meet the standard. I tell my guys at Severn, they probably hear it every day. They probably get tired of me saying it, but it's dominate the standard. Everything that you're doing is not just to meet it. Why do we want to meet it? Why not dominate and go set the bar higher for the next person behind you? So we talk about dominating the standard. I think from a philosophy standpoint, that's what I really keep my, teachings behind, my coaching behind is I'm trying to, anything that I'm doing, I'm trying to dominate my competitor with it. And that's what we really try to push off to our kids as well.
Well, you also spoke a little bit earlier about guys being coachable and connecting on that part. Do you think that this generation of athletes struggle with being coachable athletes in this day and time?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I think this generation, they're definitely a little bit different, compared to at least from when I was, playing in my younger days. I would say, a lot of them think that they don't know the work that it takes to get to where you want to truly be. And being able to, one, reiterate to them, like, hey, you're going to have to work truly much harder than the person next to you to even give yourself an opportunity, a chance, So really, I would say getting them to truly understand, this is not an easy feat, especially in today's college world, with the transfer portal and all the different avenues of getting more developed players. It's hard to get to the college level, and it's hard to get to a Division I level or even a Division II level, so really getting them to understand, it's not going to just happen because you rolled onto the field and did okay doesn't cut it anymore. You're truly going to have to be exceptional in what you're doing.
In your opinion, is the portal a good thing or okay thing, or it has some deterrence?
Overall, I think it's an awesome thing. I do think it's great. Not every not every player is always put in the right situations. They're not always told everything that happens when they get there, or they're maybe told something very much otherwise. I do think that there should be a little bit of a little bit more restriction to it. The one rule that I do love is that they had the one-time transfer. It was the one-time transfer rule. I think that's awesome. Like I said, if you do go to a school and it's just for whatever reason not the right fit, okay, you should get that one transfer. But that second one, it needs to be, some sort of regulation to it. I think it does speak volumes from a development standpoint. And what does it teach you? From a real life standpoint, is if something doesn't go your way, you get up and roll out every time. I think I don't like that aspect of it. If you don't like your situation, you don't even try. You get a lot of guys that don't even try to compete; they just leave. I think for me, sticking it out with West Virginia or sticking it out at Wheeling, even when always things weren't going my way, I think it's definitely shaped me into the man that I am today. So I definitely love the transfer portal. I just think that, it's putting a little bit of regulation to it, not allowing it to be the Wild West. It would definitely serve the athlete a lot of benefit, not just from an athletic standpoint, but from a true development standpoint.
Well, Trent, you just said something that caught my ear. Do these guys think that if you transfer, you still don't have to compete or something? I mean, I'm a transfer. Okay. Does that mean you're not going to have to compete? You still got to compete no matter where you go.
Yep, that's it.
And that, to me, that just kind of seems like the misnomer is like, okay, well, I don't like it here, I'm gonna go somewhere else. Well, you got to compete no matter where you go. It doesn't matter. You still got to compete. So if you're not going to compete here, you're going to turn on a compete switch and become a more competitive guy when you go somewhere else. And who's to say you're going to get time and reps there? So I kind of like, well, it's a benefit, but then again, you got to know what you're getting into, because if you get into portal and nobody wants you, your career basically could be over.
Yep, absolutely. And I've seen it where guys have gotten in the portal, and it's. I would say the thing about the portal as well, if you're in a position where you can compete and get an opportunity to get on the field, don't be in so much of a rush to leave, because if you get into that portal and you have no film, or it's just practice clips, it's going to, again, because the portal is competition too. Your film's competing with everybody else, so it's going to be a lot more. It's going to be a lot more difficult to find that perfect landing spot, So, I always encourage the guys that I train them, unless it's truly something where it's you truly cannot be there. If it's just, hey, I don't want to be here because I'm not going to play, I say, hey, well, listen, you're a true freshman. You're not supposed to play, number one, because you're not. There's a good chance you're not ready. So I always tell them, stay that first year. I would highly suggest you stay a second year and then make some decisions from there, because you want to give yourself a true chance. You're not going to give yourself a chance if you get there at fall camp, your true freshman year, and think you're going to play by the end of the season as a quarterback. That's just truly, it's not how that always works. So, I try to preach, like, give yourself an opportunity before you just decide to get up and leave.
Okay. Well, if folks want to get in touch with you about learning more about your foundation or wanting to get some training for their kid, how do they do that?
So we have a website, airedoutquarterbacktraining.com. You can definitely check that out. It has all of our programs on there, a big list of our alumni that's come through our program, as well as a good synopsis of our 7-on-7 program. If you want to reach out to our socials, AIO_QBs on Twitter, and then AIO Quarterbacks on Instagram, and then my personal is at Trent Jackson. Those are definitely awesome ways to get in touch with us. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be about training. If you just have questions about, quarterbacking, let us know, and we'll definitely get back to you.
All right. Good deal. Well, this is the best part of the show for me, because by you coming on the show tonight, man, you are now a member of the Brotherhood, and we'd like to welcome you, Trent Jackson, to becoming another part of our family of Black quarterbacks, and welcome you to the quarter-5 fraternity of Black quarterbacks, man. And we thank you so very much for giving us some of your time tonight.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate being in that fraternity now, and I truly appreciate you all allowing me to come on tonight and just talk a little bit about my story, and hope that it can serve to be an inspiration to someone out there.
All right. Well, there's the logo, man, and that's what you are now. You're a member of the Q5B. So thank you very much, Trent, and best wishes to you this season and to your program.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, that's going to about do it for me tonight here on the Post Route. As always, Monday night, 7 o'clock, check us out. I'd like to thank my staff and crew for making this possible. And as we say before we cut out, every Monday night, go deep, go for the bomb. Hey, guys, we'll see you next Monday night.